Christmas holidays as well as election holidays, so truly we have not had a time to sit down and talk about pregnancy. The last time we were here before Christmas holidays, we spoke about preconception as well as conception as stages of pregnancy, having noticed that a huge number of women lose their lives to pregnancy just because of a lack of enough information about the same. So we have a doctor today and we are going to be diving in again, looking at the first trimester as well as the second, and hopefully the next time we converge here we shall be looking at the third trimester. And once again, you are welcome. My name is Viola Kusasira, and NTV Medical Matters is supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The doctor is here already, and I'll give him a chance to introduce himself as well as acquaint himself with you, our viewers, and we shall dive in without further ado. So you are welcome. You can introduce yourself, sir, and then we shall start off.
I am Othniel Musana, a gynecologist serving at Nsambya Hospital in Kampala here, but I also serve in other capacities in the public health arena, and of course, part of my work is also training future specialists and midwives for this country. You're
welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And so the good thing it's you that I spoke with about the entire journey of pregnancy. So you know where we put our pin before holidays. So I would love us to focus now on first trimester of pregnancy. First of all, talk to us in simple details what that is, the first trimester.
So in pregnancy, we normally say pregnancy is 9 months for you to be able to deliver. So 9 months is divided into 3 parts. So each part is 3 months. So the first 3 months of pregnancy is called the first trimester. The second 3 months, that's from 4 months to 6 months, is called the second trimester. Then the last 3 months, 7, 8, 9, is what we call the third trimester. So when you hear trimester, talking about the months. So if you see first trimester, it is the first 3 months of pregnancy, and the problems of the first trimester are very different from the ones in second trimester and different from the ones in the third trimester. So we don't gang them when we are dealing with the woman when she comes in. Yeah.
It just reminds me of quotas in a year when we talk about economics. You know. Yes. Okay, so in the first trimester, what is that supposed to be like generally when someone is feeling normal or they're presenting as a normal pregnancy? What is that supposed to look like?
So basically, first trimester usually is about 13 weeks, calendar weeks. So in medicine, we don't count months, we count weeks. Okay. So we say the end of 9 months is 40 weeks. So when you divide by this, about 13 weeks. That's from the day of conception to the 13th week of pregnancy. Now, in the first trimester, what is happening is that most women may not be aware in the first few months or the first few weeks that they're actually pregnant. Some may think they're just having a delay in their period. Others are waiting to actually miss a second period before they seek care because they're not sure. They're not sure. And then others, because of their lifestyle, they are busy. Those who have hormonal disorders may not even know they're actually pregnant. So it poses unique risks for the mother and the safety of her pregnancy. And for us as health workers, that is the time when we are trying to see these women immediately that they realize that they are pregnant. That also said, because most are not aware they are pregnant, or they are waiting for the second period to be sure that now I'm pregnant.
You know, we had this conversation with another doctor some time back on this show, and we're trying to figure out how somebody can keep their baby safe in that moment, being that you're just living your life, perhaps drinking out in the bar, and you're pregnant, you're not even aware. So being that that's a very special risk, how can somebody be on a safer side in that first stage?
So Uganda is a bit unique that most of our women do not come for antenatal care until the second trimester.
But how would they even come around when I'm not sure?
So they come around the 4th month of pregnancy onwards. Before that, they will not show up. But generally, most of them don't know they are pregnant, so they'll continue their lifestyle. Given that most pregnancies in Uganda are not planned, it is very few which are actually planned, what they call planned babies. Most of women just conceive because they're having sex anyway, and then they're like, oh, I'm now pregnant. But their lifestyle has not shifted.
I'm actually very interested at the beginning, before you adjust your lifestyle. See, it seems very risky to me.
It has not changed because they're not expecting the pregnancy. So they continue taking alcohol. If they're using drugs, they'll continue taking drugs. Those who have not even been doing preconception care, life continues, no change in nutrition. And many of them, the first sign of pregnancy will be the nausea and vomiting. I am not feeling well, maybe I have a fever, let me go to see the doctor or see the midwife or the health worker near me to actually do a pregnancy test. Yeah.
So I'm still posing a question to you because I feel you've not answered my question, as well as viewers who are wondering. So if I cannot tell that I'm pregnant, how do I protect the baby? Especially in the case of folic acid, there is that part where you are missing folic acid or iron or any other minerals in the body. So if you cannot tell that you're pregnant, how safe is the baby in those first few weeks before you're even aware that you're pregnant?
So nature is a very good thing. Nature has its own defense mechanisms against so many things. But generally, in terms of preparation for pregnancy, most women don't prepare for pregnancy. So the folic acid we speak about and the iron, most of them will not take it anyway. And they will begin to take it when they realize they are now pregnant. But now the other behaviors, the manual work that the women do that may affect the outcome of this pregnancy in the first trimester. Women are using things, smoking, cooking, and all those may affect the pregnancy. And you cannot, in Uganda, I think that's my opinion, it's very hard to tell the women that they should stop their day-to-day lives. But once they conceive, then it's easier for them to readjust. But for the women who actually are listening to this show, once you're pregnant, once you are planning to have a pregnancy, or if you discover that you're towards your period, some behaviors should really stop. Like maybe at least, I'm expecting period. At least that's the one thing they can consider, that maybe in about 2 weeks' time, I'll have a period. So stop the alcohol, stop the drugs, and then try and see what happens at the next period. Yeah. So for prevention, it may be very hard in our setting because pregnancies are not planned, and most women anyway will not take preventive precaution to see that their pregnancy is safeguarded. But if you want to, then start the iron and the folic acid. The good thing in Uganda, as I said last time in preconception, most of our foods now, even the ones we are getting, the organic ones, are fortified with those minerals, iron and folic acid. But also the good thing in Uganda, most of our women do not smoke. But also most women do not take alcohol for whatever reason compared to, say, the men. Though in some tribes you'll find women are smoking and taking a lot of alcohol. Yeah.
Okay, so in the first trimester, what are some of those things that happen inside of the woman's body or the formation of the child? At what stage is this fetus, I would say, and what should be considered in this stage to make sure that the baby has a very good start or foundation?
So in the first trimester, I'll talk about a bit of the science and trying to break it down for the people listening in. So you have two cells coming together to form one cell, which will normally term as a zygote. It's just one cell now. That cell then divides to form an embryo. A lot of masses of more cells. And at about, so between the first week, it's a zygote. The next few weeks, it's called an embryo. When you make 9 weeks, then we start talking about a fetus. It means things have changed. The zygote just cells, just a mass of cells. Then the embryo, the cells have become more, and they're beginning to form some organs. For example, the first organ to form is the heart, because the body has to move blood and nutrition around the egg, the fertilized egg. At 9 weeks now we have formed almost all the organs, and now we have the fetus, what we call a fetus. So between 9 weeks and 13 weeks we say that is fetal life. Before 9 weeks it is an embryo that is forming organs. Parts are differentiating. Now one of the biggest challenges I think in that period are women not knowing that they are pregnant. Every week that you're pregnant, a major organ is being formed. Every week that you're pregnant. So in week 3, we know the heart is going to form. In week 4, the brain may form. In week 5, things like that. So the kidneys may form. So if you are not aware that you're pregnant, or you have not changed your lifestyle, and you're exposed to something, then you may have defects in those organs forming. Luckily, nature takes care of many of those things. Those mistakes are few, but the older you grow, the more common they become. So like nature, so in week 3 when the heart is forming, if you take any chemical, week 3 means that that's about 1 week after you've missed a period. I was expecting the period today. 7 days later, I have not had a period. In that time there, the first organ to form is your heart. So if you're taking drugs, chemicals, you may end up with children with defects in the heart. Then if you continue your behaviors, you may end up maybe with children without proper intestines forming or an abdominal wall forming. If you continue, it may also affect other issues, even reproduction. Remember that you start forming your reproductive organs in the time of the embryo, the first 8 weeks of life. So if something happened, then you may get problems with your systems for reproduction, urinary systems.
That's you speaking to the baby? You talking about?
I'm talking about the baby now. Okay. And the mother will not know because she's at home waiting. And but also, the other thing I want to talk about is for us doctors, when we see the first trimester, one, we want to confirm that you're pregnant so that we can counsel you about behavior change and supplementation, which is necessary. Two, we want to know where the pregnancy is located. Uganda is a very unique country that we have a very high fertility rate. Women conceive and deliver, I think, among the highest rates in the world. But at the same time, we have many women struggling to conceive.
When you talk about where the pregnancy is located, what do you mean?
The pregnancy is supposed to be located inside the womb, the uterus itself. But remember that the pregnancy begins in the fallopian tubes and second. That's where it begins. And for the first 5 to 7 days, it is traveling that journey from the fallopian tubes to get into the womb. So anything can happen along that journey.
I see.
So if something fails, or if the tubes have a disease or scars, or if the embryo for some reason fails to make that journey, then you may have what we call an ectopic pregnancy, a pregnancy that is located outside the uterus. So when we come to the clinic, that's the first thing we want to be sure of, that are you pregnant? And two, where is the pregnancy? Is it in the uterus or is it outside? If you cannot see the pregnancy, we might tell you come back after 2 weeks to again do another scan to confirm where the pregnancy is located. Two, we also want to know the number of sacs that we see. The number of sacs will tell us the number of babies. Is it 1 sac for 1 baby, or is it 2 sacs for 2 babies or more? These days you're seeing more multiple pregnancies or more twin pregnancies and more triplets. Reason is that, one, our women are tending to deliver later, so they are tending to use more of the fertility treatments. So they may tend to ovulate more, and of course, you ovulate more, the chances of conceiving multiple pregnancies is also increased. So we need to know those quick things early in pregnancy before we then advise you on what to do next. Yeah, but that said, less than, I think, 3% of women will show up in the first trimester. Most will show up in the second trimester.
I'll be asking you about what is supposed to be done once you realize you're pregnant, adjustments that you have to make, but also for those women that you have talked about who don't show up in that first trimester, what's the risk there?
So one is the risk, you have the risk of ectopics, because if it's an ectopic, it could kill you. So many of the young women you hear who died suddenly are likely pregnant. And that pregnancy maybe was in the tube, it ruptured, and she bled massively and died. Bled massively and died. Two, the risk is if you have other diseases, like if you have high blood pressure, diabetes, they will likely get out of control because you're now pregnant. And of course, those will become worse and they may actually kill you. So the risk is mainly in that. Three is the risk of abnormalities, because now we know that if you don't prevent abnormalities, especially by supplementation, then you will likely have, especially what we call neurotube abnormalities, like those of the brain, spina bifida, and sometimes the heart issues, if you don't attend neonatal care quickly. Yeah.
So what adjustments can somebody make once they realize, oh, they come to the hospital and you tell them, all right, you're pregnant?
The first one is changing nutrition. If you're taking alcohol and the rest, please, you have to stop. If you're a smoker, you need to stop. If you're on any medication for any disorder, any medication. Actually, one of the most common problems is that women go for over-the-counter medications. I feel sick, they'll take some Panadol. Feel sick, I'll take some diclofenac. Some of those medications are known to actually be poisonous to the embryo and may cause defects or abnormalities in the baby. We tell you to get off over-the-counter medications unless they are prescribed by a health worker. Not every health worker. Yeah. Usually the midwives or the doctors in that vicinity, because we tend to know the drugs which are poisonous to the fetus. Three, reduction of manual work, because that will increase the chances of actually having miscarriages. The number 4, of course, women also undergo lots of psychological trauma and other things, psychological abuse from their partners. Usually we want to see if we can reduce on that psychological abuse, because or gender-based violence, this also is known to impact pregnancy in the first trimester. Yeah.
So for women that feel like they, for example, you talked about psychological trauma and all that. Say, for example, a woman is pregnant and she's watching and she's on those medications to stabilize her mind or something like that. Are there alternatives that you have found out in your experience that such people can always use and stay away from the medication itself?
So generally, we have what we call safe drugs, then relatively safe, and then the unsafe drugs. So if we find that you're taking medication that is already known to affect pregnancy, we'll withdraw that medication and then use an alternative until a time when the baby's organs have formed, usually second trimester, and then we may restart your other medications that you were on before. Or most times we just continue with what we gave you during the pregnancy that is known to safe. For example, the painkillers. Not all painkillers are safe. And of course, lately there's been a big controversy about Panadol and the autism and things like that from the US and the European associations of medicine. The painkillers, which are generally, we try to avoid all drugs in pregnancy in the first trimester. However, if, for example, you need to have a painkiller, however severe the pain, normally we want to start with Panadol because we know, compared to the others, relatively safe. So we shall give you that one for the time being until you can possibly either the pain reduces or we can step up to another stronger painkiller. The other point is that for the drugs which are not safe, if you come to hospital and you say you're pregnant, so okay, let me give an example. The first thing we ask a woman whether you've come for a toothache, we'll ask you when was your last period. That's the standard question in medical practice. Whether you've come for brain surgery, we shall ask you when was your last period. Why is that? We have to be sure you're not pregnant.
Oh, I see.
Whether you've come for malaria, even our drugs for malaria may sometimes have an effect on. So the first thing we have to confirm is you are not pregnant for that purpose of safeguarding the early pregnancy. Yeah.
You know, the whole thought about pregnancy just kind of makes me feel like this baby takes so much away from the mother's freedom. And I'm not saying this in a very negative way. It may sound that way, but that's not what I'm trying to arrive at. But, you know, there are mothers who are, for example, interested in eating traditionally, say, for example, garlic, turmeric, things of that nature. How much should a mother adjust their diet in regards to keeping the baby forming safe?
So first of all, medicine is never an exact science. There are things we have researched and things we have not researched. Okay, there are chemicals we know and there are chemicals we are not aware of. So generally, we do not prevent the mother from taking her usual diet.
And when you say usual, you must understand that there is a whole range.
Yes, there's a whole range.
Some people have very strict
diets. If this tribe eats matoke and not to stop taking matoke, because the mother will starve.
And that is not like, that is the obvious food, but you have people taking things like okra and other things that...
Some of those, we just caution them to stop taking, because we may not have clear evidence that they're actually destructive. Remember that even the medicines we take, most of them are got from herbal medications. The issue is that when we are researching about the medicines, we also research about them in pregnant women or in children, and we can see the effects. But for the ones we don't have information about, we normally just say, take with caution, that they may be related to problems or they may not be, we don't know. But the ones we are sure of, we will definitely tell you, don't take this, don't take that, don't take that, don't take that. Yeah, so the ones you're taking routinely as part of your normal, what I would call normal life, lifestyle.
Yeah.
We will not generally tell you to get off them because that is what you've been feeding on for maybe decades and other things. But there are others we definitely know that this kind of chemical in this kind of food, don't take. Don't take. For example, some people ferment their food, ferment their food. Of course, that is now alcohol, and alcohol is known to cause. Wow. Alcohol is known to cause something called fetal alcohol syndrome. So we may advise you. For example, some people will ferment their maize. Yeah. Then they make the posho. So we'll tell them, no, maybe try and reduce on that because that may affect the fetus, and eventually babies will be born with a small brain, heart defects and things like that, small fingers. And
I guess now you see what I meant when I
yes.
said, you know, the freedom is gone. I mean, if you like to ferment your food, listen, you're just going to eat fresh food all the time that you don't like. But anyways, going away from that, let's look at miscarriages. For a mother watching and they've struggled with miscarriages over and over and over again, what can you advise them? And is that something that happens commonly in the first trimester, or is it after or before?
So out of every 100 pregnancies, out of every 100 conceptions, only about 30 will make it. 30 of them out of the 100 will die within a few days before you even realize you're pregnant. The other 30 will likely end up in miscarriages, usually within a short time after conception. So miscarriages is not something that is uncommon. However, when the woman now has recognized that she's pregnant, then and she miscarries, that will tend to, of course, affect her psychology. Her psychology, but also her social standing in life. Now, the miscarriages that happen recurrently, we normally say if you have at least 2 consecutive miscarriages below 3 months of pregnancy, then we shall say you have recurrent pregnancy loss. Those are the women where we want to investigate and find the cause. But if you've had maybe 1 miscarriage, then you deliver normally, then another one. We're not necessarily put a lot of focus on you and investigate you, but if you've had what we call the recurrent pregnancy loss. Before we used to call them habitual aborters. Of course, the terms, okay, in medicine, now it is changing a bit because of social outrage. But in medicine, a pregnancy loss is called an abortion. Whether it is spontaneous means it occurs naturally, or if it is induced means you decide to remove it. So now we have changed the terminology to say the first 3 months, we're now saying miscarriage if it happened naturally, without your intervention as a woman. So those women may have either immune problems, or they may have defects in the genetics of their bodies. Now, like in Uganda now, you're seeing more women in their late 30s, 40s having their first pregnancy. And of course, they're having more miscarriages. As a male, in my 40s, my sperm is not the best compared to, say, in my 20s.
What if that said woman marries a young man, say, of 22?
Her eggs, if they're not good quality, she will still miscarry, because the body will weed it out. Okay. Same thing if an older man marries a young woman and she's miscarrying a lot.
Her body is weeding out.
She may have good genetics or good eggs, but the man's quality of sperm is not necessarily the best. So, of course, there will be a higher chance of miscarriages. And if both of you are older, then of course that will happen. The other ones are immune disorders that may happen. The body may just reject that conception. Remember that part of the conception is from the male. So the body, the woman's body, recognizes the male's genetics or genes as a disorder or a foreign body. So it tries to attack it. So in pregnancy, nature has a way that when a woman becomes pregnant, the first thing to crash is the immune system, so that the male part of the baby is not attacked, or the placenta. If it fails to that process, then of course that pregnancy may end up in miscarriages. Then of course the other diseases also that may also affect syphilis. Of course, in Uganda, syphilis is reducing because of the rapid use of antibiotics over the counter, amoxicillin and other things. But syphilis remains a very important problem in Uganda. And of course, other viruses, herpes, women who have herpes, herpes simplex. You've seen people who have malaria and they get some blisters here. So if you're getting blisters in your genitalia, that is called herpes simplex type 2.
Is that not something every human is born with?
No, herpes is acquired. Herpes is acquired.
Okay. So
we have STIs. That's why you'll find us checking HIV, syphilis for every pregnancy. And of course, other STIs you may not check for them because of either resources or because we'll not do anything about them even if you have them and you're pregnant. We shall have to first wait until you deliver. So things like herpes, rubella. That's why we're now vaccinating measles rubella vaccine. So people need to get vaccinated. So there are some diseases which will also affect. We normally call them the torches, but there's also other things like toxoplasma, which is gotten from cats. People who have cats in their home, their stool and other things, they have some parasites in there that a woman may get, and those parasites will get into your placenta and of course lead to a miscarriage. So when you come, we assess the whole array of those things and then see what to manage you with.
What more should we know about the first trimester? Because we shall be taking a break shortly and then we return with the second. So what more can you say about it?
So I think the biggest thing for the women is that as soon as you realize you're pregnant, please come to the hospital so that we do what is called screening. We are screening you to know if you're what we call a high-risk woman we need to follow up because of several issues, or a low-risk woman. That may determine the outcome of your pregnancy. Women who are diabetic, hypertensive, some don't know. They first discover it when they come to the hospital. Some have never been screened for things like syphilis and the rest, and they are querying. Women who have things like fibroids, those are things we can tell in the first trimester and then work up to see that we improve the outcome of your pregnancy later.
Okay, so let's take a break, and when we return, we shall be talking about the second trimester. What can we know about it? How can we make it a better journey at that stage? But also, if you have your questions, please prepare them and be on standby, because when we return, you can be able to call us and speak to the doctor directly. Otherwise, we go for a break, but we return shortly, so stay with us. Back from the break, and thanks for staying with us this morning. My name is Viola Xasia. We are on NTV Medical Matters, and we are supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This morning we are talking about the first trimester of pregnancy as well as the second. And if you've been part of this show since we began, we were talking about what to avoid, how to spot, different signs that show something is wrong. And we're going to continue on that a little bit before we move on to the second trimester. But also, what's the role of men in all of this? So you're welcome to the second part of the show, and prepare your questions so that you're able to ask Dr. Msana here, who is generous with this information this morning. So doctor, let's talk about the danger signs. When you're in your first trimester, what should you fear most? So when it pops up, what are some of those things that may pop up and you know something is wrong? So
a danger sign is something a woman must know before. Otherwise, if she doesn't know that it's a danger sign, she will not come to seek care. Yeah. But let me first start with the natural processes. The natural signs of pregnancy. Usually the most common one is missing a period. But even then, some women, despite missing a period, may continue to spot and think it is normal and not come. So if you're pregnant and you're spotting means you're seeing a drop of blood, however small, even if there is no pain, please come to the hospital, because you may be having a miscarriage that is starting, or there is something wrong with the pregnancy. So normally after about a week after the period, a woman may see what we call a small spot of blood, which is for implantation. Then it goes away. That's fair. But if it is continuous spotting, then that's a problem. But in pregnancy, usually women will have nausea and vomiting. And that is a natural thing to have nausea and vomiting of pregnancy. However, if the nausea and vomiting means you cannot eat anything, you're getting dehydrated, you're always dizzy, then that becomes a danger sign, what we call in medicine hyperemesis gravidarum. You're vomiting excessively such that you're getting sick. So you must come to the hospital, and normally we shall rehydrate you. Or sometimes we'll give you drugs to reduce the vomiting, not to stop it, to reduce it so that it is manageable and able to do your day-to-day self-care activities.
Why don't you stop it?
It's a natural process. But also it's a sign that helps the medical teams to know if your pregnancy is progressing well. Because in the first 3 months of pregnancy, the first trimester, the pregnancy hormone called HCG, the one we test on the strip, that pregnancy hormone causes you to have nausea and vomiting. That is to prevent you from taking in toxins that may destroy the process of making organs in the first trimester. Once the organs are made, things settle. So if you don't have nausea, we are also worried because it means the pregnancy may not be growing well.
I have a question about that hormone. How does it determine that the food you're taking, the one that you're able to swallow and it stays, that it's safer than the one that it rejects?
No, it will not determine. It will not determine. Usually what will determine the food that you take is usually psychological. It's normally psychological. It's nothing to do with the hormone. The hormone is there. It will affect other parts of the body, including the brain, and tell it to develop nausea and vomiting. But the tests that you have usually are mostly psychological, but also in the way on your upbringing.
So that means that you can still eat something toxic, even though
you could still eat something toxic. Yeah. You could still eat something toxic. Now people may find they want to take dry food, so they may want to take, some people will tell you, give me alcohol, such stuff. You may still take something toxic because you want to remove the feeling of nausea. But the nature, that's nature's way of preventing or reducing your chances. So the less you take in, the less the chances of actually having a problem with the pregnancy. So nausea and vomiting, if it becomes excessive, excessive means you can't work, you can't totally eat, you're always in bed, you're too weak, that's now a problem. That's a danger sign. Come in and we manage you, usually hydration and reducing the vomiting.
Where do the headaches and the backache fall?
So now the headaches may be a point of dehydration, but the backaches, usually cramps, let me call them cramps. If you have cramps in early pregnancy, please seek medical care because the body may be trying to push out the pregnancy. So if you have cramps and you have spotting, then you're likely going to miscarry. So you need to come and we stop the cramps and also manage the bleeding. Normally we tell you get a bed rest for some time as we manage the cramps. If you're bleeding heavily, when I say bleeding heavily, that's usually more than the menstrual bleeding that you have. That will be heavy bleeding. Please make sure that you come in and we assess you as well. The other one is the fevers. Most women now find it difficult to tell everything that if they feel unwell, they say malaria, malaria. So if you have fevers, please also come in and we get tested for malaria and urine infections so that we can treat them on time. Now, those are, I think, the major things we care for in a first trimester. And of course, abdominal pain. Because usually if you have urine tract infections, you'll have low abdominal pain and frequent passing of urine that may point to a urine infection. So please come in if you have bleeding, if you have low abdominal pain, if you have what we call cramps, and if you have fevers, come in immediately. Do not wait.
Talk about the role of men in all of this. How can men be supportive in this stage of pregnancy?
So generally, that's more of a social question. In medicine, we have tried to encourage men to come and become involved in the pregnancy, the whole journey. However, take into context that in Uganda, pregnancy and childbirth are a female-dominated field. Even when the men come to most of these hospitals, usually what we are calling them for is to check them for HIV, check them for syphilis, and to tell them maybe to bring money for supplies. But we never take the time to actually counsel the men about danger signs, which is very important. The fact that women need to rest more when they are pregnant, so the men can sometimes, that's usually the ones who make the decision. So the housework, the menu work can be, the men can say, okay, you stop. But the challenge in the health sector, when the men come, they're coming to an already busy health unit. Like if you go to many public facilities, they're quite busy. So the men are also hanging around there. Nobody's talking to them, so they will likely go. But the men are necessary to understand the danger signs of pregnancy, to understand how even their own lifestyle can affect the outcome of this baby, from STIs to taking alcohol, gender-based violence, but also to ensure that the women can actually have time to rest during this time. But more importantly also is to prepare them for the time of delivery. But at least there are some resources set aside by the man for the woman to actually use during delivery, but also during antenatal. Men sometimes think women have come to the hospital, maybe they have gone to another man's place. So they need to also understand the schedules that your wife will be required at this point. Maybe we shall require some money to test for this, shall require this. So if men are actually well counseled, they become supportive. The challenge when they come, usually the hospitals are overwhelmed by numbers of the pregnant women such that they forget about the men. Or they just say HIV, then go away.
Have you encountered women who do not want their husbands when they're pregnant?
Yes.
Who are disgusted sort of by their spouses, or I think it's a thing to do with sweat, the one that I've seen before, where they do not want to smell this person's sweat or something like that, and so they push them away. How can you advise the men when that happens? I
think for the man, once your wife is pregnant, it's always good to first of all to come to the hospital and have even with as a person, go to the hospital and have a chat with the midwife or the doctors about these issues too, talk to other men who are older than you. Usually they'll have gone through this and they know how to deal with some of those problems. Of course, the women are now experiencing their smell levels are heightened, so anything small will disgust them. They don't want to eat food. They'll send you for matoke. Then when you come back, now I want chapati. Then, so all those things that the men have to go through, and sometimes those things can cause marital problems or relationship problems, because the man is like, now, what's your problem? You think I'm not good enough for you anymore because you're pregnant? I'm not the first to get pregnant. So the issue, I think, is that we don't have expert male counselors. We tend to focus on the woman, the woman, the woman. Yet the men actually are also going through a lot during this time, and they have their own problems. I've been to a center in Europe where they have what we call men shops in the hospital. So when you call for the man, there's a section, it's almost like a bar, video games and where the men congregate, and they can be given messages relevant to supporting their wives. But in Uganda, when you come, you don't even have a space where the man will sit. Sometimes we try to make sure that if you come with your husband, she'll see you first. So the men sometimes abuse that. The man will now say, tell her brother, you come with me, that I get seen first by the doctor. Then they walk away. So some of those things happen, but I think the men have a big role. The challenge is now, how do we incorporate male-friendly services in the hospital? Yeah.
Okay, doctor, so let's get into the second trimester. First of all, how does it manifest, and what is most important to know about it? So
the second trimester is very interesting. Usually the woman is feeling much better. The nausea and vomiting has stopped. That's the second 3 months. From 4 months, 4, 5, 6 months, the vomiting has stopped. The woman now has an appetite, and she may tend to eat a lot more. She'll begin noticing changes about her body. She's gaining weight. She's seeing a lot of stretch marks developing on her body. She's noticing a bump. So most times she's even more confident. If she wants the pregnancy, she's now more confident. She can. You notice that she's trying to change her mode of dressing. But more importantly, for us on the medical side, is the time that we're now looking exclusively for the disorders that come because you're pregnant. What we call pregnancy-related complications. You only get them because you're pregnant. High blood pressure, what we call preeclampsia, may be setting in. We have some women who develop diabetes, what we call GDM, that is caused specifically because you are pregnant. It's a time where also now the baby is big enough that we want to screen you for abnormalities of the baby. So we want to do a scan. If it's a time to do a scan, it is in the second trimester. Look out for abnormalities of the baby, of the brain, of the heart, and of the abdomen, and a few other things. So we have a caller online. Medical Matters, hello there. What's your name and your question? Can you hear us? What's your name and your question? Okay, we've lost that one, but yeah, we're describing what we can expect. Yeah, so, but also for most mothers, it's the time they will begin to feel movements. Oh, yeah. Movements of the baby. So the first trimester, what we are using as medical people is, okay, are you having nausea and vomiting? If you don't have nausea, we sort of worry. It means the pregnancy may have stopped growing well, and you may end up with a miscarriage. But now, are you having movements? So that the mother can have a sign which shows her that baby is well. Okay, we have a caller. What's your name and what's your question? Yes, please, we can hear you. What's your name and your question? Yeah, we're having a challenge with the calls. Okay, so you talked about overeating, a possibility of overeating. How much should a mother limit herself when it comes to that appetite, the surging appetite? We really have no limit. So for us on our side as medical practitioners, what we want to know is to measure your weight at every visit. We want to know if, generally, the minimum weight you should gain, minimum, is at least 5 kilos. That's the weight of the baby, and if you're less than 5 kilos, we also worry. Because I've seen mothers who have gained weight during pregnancy, and it was very difficult to deliver the baby. But also, we should not gain at least more than 18 kilos. But that will depend on the weight before pregnancy. Because if you gain rapidly, it also causes other problems.
Yeah.
It will tend to predispose you to high blood pressure in pregnancy. It will predispose you to diabetes, the type caused by pregnancy. But also it will predispose you later to big babies and also difficult deliveries. So women who gain weight rapidly in a very short time may tend to have problems.
Okay, we have somebody on the line. NTV Medical Matters, what's your name and your question?
My name is Kambade. Kambade.
Yes, please.
Kambade is my name. Kakati is Kambade.
I think we lost him. Chambade got off the line. We lost him.
So on the issue of weight, rapid weight gain has been found to... Oh.
Yes, please. What's your name and your question?
I'm Rachel.
Yes, please. What's your question?
I've been watching here the doctor explaining about hairy pregnancies, and I've been going through the same. On the 5th day, I got an operation.
Yes, please.
And I was operated, and this happened. This is the second time.
Okay.
Getting pregnant and not knowing that I'm pregnant, and I remain in my normal situation. At the end of the day, I go on operation.
Okay. What is your question?
My question is, what causes that for the person to be pregnant and not to know exactly, and then you come to know like when the pregnancy is like 2 months to 3 months?
Okay, thank you so much, Rachel. So we shall take note of that question. Let's see whether we have another caller. We would have like 4 to 3 questions and answer all of them at once. So if anybody else is there, this is your chance to call in and ask the doctor whatever is bothering you. So we have somebody on the line. Yes, please, Medical Matters, your name and your question. That one took off very fast. We need to have more callers, so please, viewers, call in and ask your questions to the doctor before he goes away. I actually see that we have little time left, but that was a question about why. I think we hinted on that, but maybe you have to answer that in detail when we get back to answering the questions. But it was a question about not knowing that you're pregnant, only for you to, you know. So somebody else out there, what's your question and what's your name?
My question is, how can one stop ectopic pregnancy?
Okay, thank you for that question. Anybody else that has a question, call us. The numbers are on your screen. You can be able also to go to our social media platforms at NTV Uganda and be a part of this conversation, as well as we stream live on X, so do not miss any single episode of this show. Be able to be a part of it through our X as well as our website. We are always streaming live if you can't watch at home. So anybody else that has a question, call in and we shall be able to answer in real time. Otherwise, we can first tackle the two, I believe. The first question was about, you know, just not knowing that you're pregnant and then just discovering 2 months later.
Yeah, so some women may have hormonal disorders and they miss periods anyway. They may miss 2-3 months without periods, and they may conceive and not know they're actually pregnant until an event happens and they miscarry. That group is there. The second group is the women, usually the Baganda say, meaning that even when I become pregnant, I continue having bleeding like before.
Yes.
And they forget that actually that's a danger sign. So they conceived. Now she's pregnant and she's having the spotting or the actual frank bleeding.
Yes.
And some of them, the pregnancies survive and proceed up to the 9 months. So they will say, that's the way my pregnancy is. Yet actually the body was trying to miscarry.
Yeah.
That category is also there. Then there are women, for whatever reason, usually it's a cultural thing that they want to first wait for before they can announce to the world that, you know, I am pregnant. Because they either have suffered loss or they really want to be sure that I'm actually pregnant, who will not take any measure to actually seek and know if they are pregnant or not until they're like, now it's 3 months, no period. So that category of women are. Then of course now there are also women who are sometimes using contraception and either they missed going back for their dose or something, and then they will maybe miss a period and still think the contraception is still working. And then she will come and, now I am pregnant. Then there are also some, of course, who are on contraception and still conceive, either because the dose was small or things like that. So there are a bit of, so many, it's a very broad question, but most women will tell you, and that is their normal. That is their normal, which is actually a danger sign that they are bleeding during pregnancy. But somehow the body tends to survive. Then on the issue of the ectopic pregnancy means the pregnancy is outside the uterus, either in the tubes or in the abdomen or in the ovaries. Now, the problem that causes the ectopic pregnancy tends to happen before you actually conceive. Either you have STIs that for some reason destroyed the inside of the tube and you have scars. So as the pregnancy is, as the embryo, the zygote is growing, every single day in those 5 days of transporting it, it will reach a point where it cannot go through and then get stuck there. So either you have had STIs, women who have had disorders like endometriosis, which damages the tubes. When I say endometriosis, if you have painful periods, painful menstruation periods, you likely have endometriosis. And if you're also conceiving later in life, of course, you'll tend to have tubal damage. If you've had previous surgeries, so lots of things happen that may destroy the tubes and cause the ectopics. But also of recent, there are a couple of women who have made it a habit to take emergency contraception after every sexual encounter. The hormones in the emergency contraception sometimes may slow down the movement of the tubes in pushing the eggs. So you may come with an ectopic, and the only thing we may find is that you took an emergency contraception. They are abusing it. They think it is actually supposed to be used every day, and they don't know how it works. So sometimes you may have some of those disorders.
Okay, so I actually thought we'd look at the first trimester and the second, but time will not allow us. Clearly, we need another episode for that, and the third as well. But as we wind up, I'm going to request you to speak to some of our viewers that would prefer Luganda, so you highlight the most important points in Luganda for them.
Neyanza nnyo okubeera k'omukutu kuno. Njagala kutegeeza abatuwuliriza abaami n'abakyala n'abawala abato n'abakula nti fenga abakozi abakolera gavumenti obakola ebitongole ebyobulamu tubakubiriza nti kasita otegeera nti piriyodi yo oba omwezi togulabye ku olwo jangu mu ddwaliro tutandika okukebera oyinza okuba oli lubuto ate bw'otegeera nti oli lubuto jangu ew'omusawo akukebere endwadde nga kabootongo, akebere endwadde nga HIV, akebere oba olina sukaali oba pressure n'endwadde bwe zito ziyinza okukosa olubuto lwo. Ekyokubiri, bw'obeera omwami wange oli eyo mukyala wo ng'ali lubuto, bw'obuze mu ddwaliro naawe weebereremu obuuze omusawo nti lwaki ompise, munjagaza ki, nsobola okuyamba ntya. Togenda bugenzi n'otuula eyo n'oddayo eka n'oyomba nti ate omanyi abasawo tebanfuddeko biki, zako okwebereramu.
Okay, so I'll give you another chance to speak about the dangers. These are danger signs. I need my Luganda audience to understand the danger signs and life adjustments.
So Wobanga oli lubuto.
So Colinda, we have a phone call. NTV Medical Matters.
Good morning.
Yes, please. What's your name and your question?
Gloria. My question is,
oh no. We just lost her like that. Yeah, so danger signs and lifestyle adjustments.
Bw'obanga oli lubuto, oba otegedde nti oli lubuto, oba osuubira nti oli lubuto, eriyo by'olina okukyusamu mu bulamu obwo. Bw'obeera omukazi olina okukendeeza ku mirimu egy'amaanyi.
Hello.
Yes, please. What's your name and your question?
My question is, I would prefer to speak Luganda.
Okay, please speak louder.
In the Hadija and Sinzija Matija. But then he is the most important. Because now I have to say
Network is very bad.
What could be the cause? The fact I get back to a premature.
Could you speak? Tubuze mu Luganda mukwano.
nti mbuuza lwaki nze siggiza 40 weeks bakati nina abaana basatu naye siggiza 40 weeks eyasooka yali trimester wa 7 months eyaddako namuzaala ku 33 weeks neyazeeko namuzadde ku 36 weeks kati nga mbuuza ekizibu kiyinza kuba luddawa and what could be the solution?
Okay, you heard her?
Yes.
Thank you so much for your question.
So in these trimesters, when we give you, normally you write somewhere on your card, expected date of delivery, EDD, and we shall say maybe it is the 21st.
Ono jamudamu mu Luganda.
Bw'oba ozze mu ddwaliro nga tukubalira ennaku zo, ennaku ezo tuzibala okutandika olunaku lwe wasemba, lwe wayingira period yasembayo. Then ne tukuwa olunaku ne tugamba ojja kuzaala EDD, tusuubira nti ku nnaku z'omwezi zino oteeka okuba wazadde. Oteeka okuba wazadde. Simula njala ku lunaku olwo. Oteeka okuba, you should have delivered by this date. So, we bakuwa EDD, which is 40 weeks from the time of your periods. The weeks, 3 weeks before that date, baby aba akuze bulungi okuzaalibwa, and you can deliver from 37 weeks onwards. Kati ye kyagamba nti lwaki tazaalangako mwezi ennaku. Naye sinza kyagambye zaala myezi 7, then 33 weeks, then 36 weeks. Abo nabona bali ba premature. Kitegeeza waliwo ensonga endala lwaki abaana baavaayo mangu. Either walina obulwadde munda mu bukyala, oba pressure yali ekubye, oba omubiri gwennyini gulaba nti bebi ono okumukuumira muno ayinza okufuna obuvune katumugjeyo mangu n'ozaala ba premature. So kati kizibu ky'okuzaala ba premature. Naye nga abakyala abasinga bazaala wakati wa weeks 3 okutuuka ku lunaku lwe twabawa mu kiseera ekyo. Mutugamba nti bebi aba akuze awezezza emyezi 9, bebi akula bulungi, then azaalibwe.
Okay, thank you so much, Doctor, for that. And just like that, we've finished our time on this show. But as we promised, we shall come back with another episode. And that episode will talk about the second trimester, as well as another episode to talk about the third trimester, because clearly the time is not enough for to cover all of that in one. I thought we'd cover 2, but it's impossible. So thank you so much for watching. I am Viola Kusasira. Tuja komao tukuletele second trimester and third. So wekumile kwen NTV Uganda. Also keep it to NTV Uganda, and also go to our social media to be able to catch some of these conversations as we host the doctors here on NTV Medical Matters. Viola Kusasira, NTV Medical Matters, supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I wish you an amazing week.